So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming down to the Contemporary Arts Museum Houston. If you don't know me, my name is Daniel Atkinson. I'm the Education Public Programs Manager here, and I'm super excited that we have Lee Baxter Davis in here today. Just so that you know, this is the second to last of the lectures that will be going on for the Trenton Doyle Hancock show, which is the show around you here. Just a couple brief sentences about Lee's background. So Lee was teaching for a number of years at East Texas State University, which is now, I think, Texas A&M Commerce. Is that correct? Yes. I think so. Okay. I don't know. I'm from Minnesota, so this stuff is all like, I have no idea what's going on with that. But Lee was really fundamental in a huge number of artists from East Texas and their development. Just innumerable. We had Gary Panter here earlier, obviously Trenton. When you get a chance to look at the work, you'll see just how much of this narrative-based work that's coming out of East Texas can be linked back in some form to the practice of Lee. So if you could please join me in welcoming Lee Baxter Davis.
Well, thank you, Daniel. It's Daniel this and Daniel that, and Daniel go away, but it's thank you, Mr. Atkinson, when the drums begin to play. We'll see if we can play a few drums here. I've got my notes, and I'll be referring to these. I got them all written down in my little sketchbook here, in order to keep myself from. Can you hear me? That's probably more interesting to look at than me. I'm not tall enough for this podium anyway. Keep myself from drifting off and going on and on. He's kind of like my pastor, my priest, and he gives a homily, and he gives the homily, and you don't know which will come first, the end of the homily or the end of the world. And sometimes I get to going and, forget to where I am. So I'll try to keep straight here. I'll make an attempt to discuss the art of drawing. And in the drawing, you have the fundamental element of the drawing is the line. And those primary elements, with all its varieties, the edges, the surfaces, these are all essential to the drawing, making a distinction possibly from the painting per se. I liken drawing to meditation in that drawing is made up of two parts. You have rendering and you have sensitivity or the composition. You have those two things that are involved in drawing. In meditation, you have the two parts. You have meditation and you have contemplation. Meditation, rendering, is a skill. It is a skill that can be learned. Any good teacher can teach you this. As a matter of fact, you can learn both meditation and rendering probably from a good text if you were to you persevere. So that is a matter of discipline. Then there is the matter of sensitivity. That is, the objective of rendering is that composition, that presence, that energy of the work. The objective of meditation, the discipline of meditation, is contemplation, or to be in the presence. So there is a relationship to that, and if you'll think of those images a little bit, it might be helpful for you to understand what it is that I attempt to do. And let's see if I can make this machine work. This is an early piece, and this is The Temptations of St. Obi. And I hasten to say that there is no St. Obi. All right, this is made up. This is a persona of my own imagination. I saw a man in a pen push a stick against the wind. Now that's a little sutra that was written by James Searles. It's probably about the 1980s. And that little sutra was accompanied with a line drawing in sepia of a man in a pen pushing a stick against the wind. Drawing is pushing a stick against the wind. I'm looking at this, I don't want to carry this thing around, but I'll probably wander off. I look at you all out here, look at everything that I see, and of course, I'm almost immediately from, what is it, well, I mean, if you count my childhood, certainly 60 years of learning to think this way, and thinking in terms of those lines, you know, the contour, the sweep of the line. I'm seeing you all as potential drawings right now, and you know, and putting it into that composition and giving those lines and those marks an energy. There were all of those formal, abstract elements of the marks that are the are the basis of the aesthetic property of the piece. In other words, as in contemplation, in presence, of giving the piece itself some presence within its context. There's a similarity, there's a general similarity between religion and art. It's somewhat superficial, really, in a way, but those similarities are that the commonality of the two is a search of self-identity. James Searles also once said, somebody asked him about artwork, and he said, all art is self-portrait, and that resonated with me. There's some aspect of that is true, at least in my case, of that search for self-identity. Not just myself, all right, but the collective aspect of ourselves. Who are we? Okay. Now, you're looking at a drawing. It's a little diptych here, and yeah, it looks like, okay, yeah, thank goodness. I was going over in my head about looking at this one, and this is the second one. I guess I'm going to have to take this thing off and carry it with me. This is the second one that I did of this particular scene, and I did the entire life of St. Owen. I won't go into it. That I did in picture, and this was the second one. And when I was thinking about this and giving this talk, I was actually thinking about the first one that I did. Someone owns both of those pictures. I forget who from the past, but it was a triptych. So in my mind, I was thinking of the triptych. This will work, so we're okay. It's a diptych. It's a two-part. So what we have here is we have image. We have those elements that you have to be able to render. You know, the skill to be able to make accurate shapes with the following, right? Okay, the thing that can be learned, the discipline that can be learned in order to deal with those images. So you have image, and you have time, and you have space. Now, the image is for the persona, right? Okay, the images that you see there. And then there is the space, which is the place in which those images are. Okay? And then you have time, which is the picture plane itself, 2 moments in time. Right? And then you have this bird. And this is interesting because as I thought about this, okay, this was not planned. I was still thinking about the first one that I did, okay? And the first one I did, see the bird who comes out, who swoops out and actually connects, moves beyond the picture plane of the moments in time and connects the 2 moments in time. Now, I'm speaking, of course, in terms of the elements of the illusion of imagery. I think about you think about what all is going on in the world now. Everything that I have to say here about these pictures is really pretty superficial and almost silly in relation to the realities of life and the world, right? But these are the attempts that the artist makes within the illusion of these things to define that self. Who are we? What are we here for, right? Now, it's a game. art is a game. Life is not a game. There's the art of living, if you will, all right? Living well is the best revenge, all right? There is the art of living, but life is not a game. It is reality. What happened? This is a graphite drawing. It's fairly early, too, last century. And it's called calcination. Now, calcination is a word that means purifying by heat. I think it's taken, the alchemists use these kinds of terms, right? Like taking a heat and getting out all of the bad elements and bringing in the purity of the element. So what we have here is the image. We have this glider that's gliding out. It's gliding out of the pictorial plane, the space of imagination, right? Now there's other elements that are in this that you see. So look carefully. There's a mandala there, which is a female image. There's a skull. Keep those in mind. This is called contemplating departure. The outward eyes scribbled out. The seeing into the world scribbled out. The eye of the inner eye seeing into the self. The smile and the flying of kites. Who are we? Who are we and what are we about? This is a little bit more recent. This is called Family Tree. This is the nature of imagery in remembering. This is about who you are as a family. This is about your genealogy. And of course, this is also very personal here because I'm the one that did this. And the main persona in this picture, who is kind of seems to be wrapped in ropes and cabbage leaves, and you can see that is, I've since had this on, but that is a self-portrait. And look carefully. The picture's a little gritty, so it's kind of hard to see some of the details, which I can see a lot better here, up here on this one. But there is the stream, which would be time, who we are. Now, genetically speaking, to my astonishment, is what is my background? Well, I always thought of it as being kind of German Swiss, Felders, et cetera, and so forth, Davises. But it turns out that my DNA indicates that I am mostly Irish, which probably accounts for a lot of aspects of my life in memory. You'll see me here. There is. I don't have, but the image has is the probably the finest assault weapon ever invented, the AK-47, made by a Russian tankman during World War II. A simple weapon, if you've ever seen it, very easy to take apart, very easy to clean, and always faithful. Okay? And there I am, wrapped in a rope, the censure of the monastic life, with the AK-47 having shot holes through all of those memories of who that I would have liked to have been and who that I am. If you look carefully back over to the back, there is, of course, a kind of a cathedral there, and you will see the Blessed Mother in color, kind of over to the right. And there is the water, and I think of it as the water of purification, of baptism, if you will, if you want to think liturgically, flowing into the stream of life. And what am I doing at the other end? Picture's hard to see, you know. I'll point out what I'm doing. Which is what we do. So the use of imagery, having, developed the skill of rendering so that I can have these images, and then moving into that picture plane, moving like that glider, gliding into the world of imagination and bringing it forward in these somewhat superficial and maybe silly works of art. And here we get some more of this. We're still on this personal level, the personal experience. This is this particular one is called Odysseus in Switzerland. Switzerland is a landlocked country, and Odysseus was a sailor, that sailed. He sailed the Aegean. He was the, he was the original anti-hero. He was a little man, and he was clever. And that's how he got through life. All right, and you kind of see this actually a kind of a scary sort of guy with a kind of a Greek helmet on, giving him a certain look, a very sinister look, though he does have little ships in his lap, all right? The personal recall. I have been to Switzerland. I have relatives in Switzerland. The Capuchin order, with a little church that still exists and is owned privately by the Felder family since the 16th century, is in Switzerland. That's part of my heritage as well. German, Swiss, which were probably Irishmen that snuck over there somewhere. So these are about those kinds of remembering the rendered persona and the place. These that we're looking at now, this one is called this one is called Thin Ice. I almost got mixed up. I looked on the wrong page. See, I'll give you my notes. Good thing I have these notes. This one is called Thin Ice. All of the last three pictures that we're seeing are within this context of looking at things in terms of that kind of personal sort of remembering, okay? Let me speak a little bit about some of these qualities here. You have an image. That would be the persona of this picture. You have image. And image is an emotional response. Images are things that evoke emotions. Then we have, because we have minds, we have concepts, ideas of the mind, right? Images are not real, but they have presence. We can see them, right? and they evoke our emotions. Concepts and ideas have reality, a greater reality than images. But we cannot see them. They are of the mind. Now, when one begins to try to create an image that begins to take on the properties of the myth, symbols are images of the mind, giving an illusionary substance to the thought, the concept that is real but cannot be seen. So you have all these different levels of these things. Now, this is a symbolic picture, and the title is Thin Ice. Walking on the thin ice, both intellectually and emotionally, with a kind of clasping firmly the Sacred Heart of Jesus. See, I'm walking on thin ice, right? We'll look at these and you can look at these. These are all very similar in this realm. Thin ice, souls of the just. The reliquary. There's one of my models there. I think one of my models on the far. Well, all of the female, most all of the female images comes from my best model, who's here. There she is, right there, my wife. Okay, say Daria a little bit later on and something. And let's see, where's Dominic? Is that Paxton or Dominic? Oh, what did I do? That wasn't intentional, folks. Let me get back to where we were. Now, I use those things. A wonderful thing to be. If you have learned how to render, and we could talk about rendering for a long time, but the thing of it is, what I do is have to turn off all these slides, give everybody a pencil and a piece of paper, and then I would start teaching a class, okay, which would probably would have more of a practical application than probably anything that I have to say. But, the discipline of rendering. Without that discipline of rendering, it would be difficult to be able to do these things. Now, one of the things that you do with rendering and drawing is that you learn to see things in real time and real space, right? Because when you're looking at this picture here, and you're looking at these images, they are images. Those are illusions. They're not real. Now, I'm looking out at you guys, right? And we're all right here in the middle of reality, okay? Well, maybe not the middle of reality in an art museum. I'm not sure if that's the middle of reality. But I think that a couple of things. If you look at Trenton's work today, first of all of those elements that I talked about rendering are real easy to see. They're a little bit more difficult to see in my work because of the density of it. Now, it's not that Trenton's are not dense, because they are, but the thing of it is being much cleverer than I am and less nervous than I am. He seems to be able to render, contour, cross contour, hatch, cross hatch, etc. To create all those shapes with volume in a very kind of calm and simple and efficient sort of way. Master draftsman, right? Always was from the very beginning. So, where I'll make mistakes here, just ask Trent about it later, and he will explain to you the real aspects of these things. Where are we? Yeah. Souls of the just, a higher place, and you notice the motif in those two. We'll go back. Souls of the just, think about the title. a higher place. I actually did this one first, and then the other one second. Interesting, the nature of color. Color is an interesting thing. Black and white, let's call it color. Black and white are the colors of dreams, or at least in my case. Okay, most of you here probably didn't see very many pictures in black and white. But, you know, I was born in 1939, and it wasn't in Paris. I was born in 1939, and there was no television. It was radio and the movies. And I dreamed in black and white. If you want to see the perfect image of dreams, at least in black and white, is just go and watch all of your old silent movies. They're all dreams, right? The jerkiness and stuff like that. There's an influence here on that. Black and white is the primal color. But because black and white is so primal that it doesn't seem to have an image of itself. Black and white does not have an image. You use black and white to establish images. Color is an image. Red is an image, all right? So one of the things that you can do is begin to use color. And so color is an image in which that you can enhance the image of the rendering. But the dream is black and white. I hope that makes some kind of sense. And this is the reason I'm wearing my bonnet today. Okay. This is called Broken Cisterns. And that's going to bring us to another series of concepts here. There are three emotional gates of point of view, the psychologists tell us. They are the gates of love, rage, sexual passion. Those are the three gates. Now, I'm using words here. So in terms of the life experience, you know, what is love? And, you know, I know that there's at least two different categories of love. The filial love, the agape love, you know, rage, all the way down to minor annoyance, okay? So we use those things. And then of sexual passion, everything from something that would be innocently so to something that would be perverse and even evil, okay? So you've got all these different ranges of possibilities. Now, imagine there is a wall with these three gates. And on the other side of that wall is a landscape, the same landscape, all right? And you enter one of these gates and you see that landscape emotionally within the context of that gate. Now, usually it's never one of those gates. It's, you know, we're entering back and forth. Maybe we're entering some of those gates at the same time, right? And so you can see that this is in mind. This is probably the closest one that I got to the gate of rage. There's not too much rage, at least in the older place. There's a great deal of rage in the really early works. Back when I first mustered out of the Army, there was a lot of rage in that, but not so much anymore. However, there is this business of, like, you know, let's shoot down and mow down our demons, right? Which are coming right directly toward my big Irish nose. Huh? This is Scottish, but there you are. I always like this image. Okay. I have all kinds of props in my studio. This is one of them that I make use of. Okay. So the gates of emotion, love, rage, sexual passion. And I'd said this earlier, you can see those elements of those things in most works that have imagery in it. Okay, I mean, just to give you a handle upon that, and to try to give you a handle upon some sort of analysis of what might kind of be in the head of the person who is supposed to be the artist and who's making these pictures. This one is called The Maturity of Venus. The models of both of these are my favorite model, which is my wife. One back when we were first married, and one more current, okay? And this is, of course, about that stream of life. We live in time, right? We have an eternal, each and every one of us here, I think, philosophically speaking, each and every one of us here have within us an eternal beauty. Some of us might even have the beauty of our bodies, depending upon the gate in which that you perceive that, of beauty itself. And there are two different processes that are going on in our body. There's anabolism and catabolism, metabolitic processes. Anabolism is building of the cells, growth, right? And catabolism is the destruction of the cells. Growth, destruction, growth, destruction. As we age, as we go through life, as we mature, hopefully in the mind as well as the body, right? The body itself is beginning, the predominant one is the catabolism. We begin to start change. We begin to die. We begin to lose our hair. And in my case, I keep getting smaller, and it was never large. And I keep getting smaller and smaller. The incredible shrinking man until ultimately that I will disappear. So this is about that theme, okay? And then there is definitely the mark of sexual passion, especially in regards to myself and my dear wife. This is a study for the same one, so we'll get back to a little bit more of the practicality of rendering. You know, you begin to deal with these ideas, and what you do is you kind of have this, you have an idea. You know, you kind of have like all mental images, you have a kind of little mental image in your head. You say, well, you know, what about this? You don't really know what it's about, but you can't see it. You can't see it very clearly. You say it's vague, okay? And so what you do, if you have the skill of rendering, if you are a person that can draw, and then you would begin to start bringing that vagueness of this idea, this concept, into the vision, right? You know, you got the picture plane. That's a one moment in time, right? You got this big, or small, or little bitty, or medium size. You got this psychic window, right? And it's pristine. It's pristine in white, right? It's like that endless space of eternity, huh? And I saw a man in a pen push a stick against the wind. So you begin to develop that. Now, if you're disciplined and mature, as I am, right? You begin to start saying, well, you know, I can plan some of these things out. I can even repeat some things, like you saw the one with the boy with holding the snake, right? And the French soldier with the reliquary arm. Do you remember those? So, you know, that's a study with the shell and stuff. And, you know, to prepare myself for this particular piece. And I'll go back. See, there we are. And there's the study. I could have shown the study first, but I think it's more interesting this way. So it's a rehearsal. You know, in rendering, sometimes if you would just simply rehearse things, you can kind of get your moves down, right? And then so when you make the actual image, you can give it with confidence the energy, the sweep, right? You can push the stick against the wind. You can push the stick against the wind of cannibalism. You can push the stick against the wind of death. You can have the dream of immortality. Let's see where I am. Okay. Myth, the mythological image. I, for a number of years, have called my work and used to teach this, these terminology of the psychological drama, to create that psychological drama, which ties in to this notion of image and concept, of myth, okay? You know, and of that, if you will, of the narrative, okay? Now, let me say right here at this point, even though this used to be back in the old lizard cult days, there was a kind of malevolent warfare that went on between Lee Baxter Davis and Carl Umlauf. Carl Umlauf was a devoted, formalist. It'll come in a minute, folks. He was a formalist, right? Now, that's when I went to school. Carl Umlauf and I are about the same age, okay? Carl probably a couple of years older than me. Born sometime in the 30s. I was born at the end of the 30s, 1939. So when we came in and started studying art, you know, everything had become abstract expressionism, right? Let me explain. Formal element. You know, we talked about the image, right? And the discipline of rendering, creating images, creating accurate shapes with volume, right? And then we talked about the presence of the mark, okay? Abstract expressionism is like saying, let's get rid of the image and just go right straight to the purity of the sensuousness of the mark, right? So there's something to that. And indeed, if a rendering has none of that sensitivity, does not have any of that energy, it's only a craft, right? So we can't make fun of that or anything, but at the same time, when we deal with the notion of image and myth, we have to be able to have at our fingertips, so to speak, the ability to make an image, right? Rendering, discipline, accurate shapes with volume, right? Executed with sensitivity. The study, the rehearsal, right? Get your moves down, playing the piano. I'm saying that because my brother could play the piano. I actually can hardly distinguish one note from the other. And then executing the work, right? Performing the concert, okay? Kind of like I've done here with my wonderful notes and stuff. See, I got it, you know, what am I doing? I draw better, folks, when I do this. Okay. The psychological drama was what I taught the kids in the days of the old lizard cult thing, because we were in this warfare. There was all these two people doing this narrative stuff, mostly because of me, or people that were interested in doing the narrative stuff, and then the formalists, all right? The psychological drama, okay, term comes from God knows where. Psychodrama, specifically that term, Jesuit retreat house, right? I go to the Jesuit retreat house every year, my annual retreat, my wife and I together, all right? Been in an order, religious order of permanent deacons now for 30 years. Okay, it's part of my life now. So, you know, you'll see these kind of relationships between religion and art that I brought up. Psychodrama, meditation. Shut your eyes. Somebody gives you a picture in your head. I see, right? You get that in your head, and you're looking at it, right? And then, using passive energy, you use that, and you go into that scene and that event, and you have a conversation with whoever's there, right? Like the Sacred Mother, right? Picture plane, moment in time, making marks, right? Drawing the images. Then you have a dialogue with it, right? Takes on a life of its own. Not as important as the other thing I was talking about, but playing the game of pictures. Huh? Which is what I do. That's what I do, is play the game of pictures. And you rehearsed it, you discipline, then you begin to do it, and it begins to take on those wonderful, abstract, energetic qualities of the purity made impure by the image of the abstract expressionist, right? So we learn from these things. They're all important. Now I want to dwell a little bit more on myth, and I'm going to try to move a little bit faster here. You know, myth, and if you recall, you know, myth is where you're dealing with the symbolic image, which gives presence to the concept, okay? Myth, the psychological drama. This is called the wedding party. The mythological definition of the collective self. A myth that begins to tell us in some aspect of our lives of who that we are. It's certainly dealt with in terms of this personal memory. But here it is not so much just an image, but is a symbol. Concept given substance in the illusion of imagery. Who we are, where we're going. The primary theme of myth, death, and the primal fear of distinction. Remember the glider coming out, the picture, and up in the corner? The skull, right? Also the symbol of the philosopher. Get my drift? Has anybody gone to sleep yet? Which will end first? This lecture or the world? We're getting close, folks. We're getting close to the end. All right. Death and the fear of extinction. The archetypes. When you're working that away, it includes ritual drama. That guy in New York, one of the critics saw the work, and he said, his work is overpoweringly portentous. I had to go look the word up, which means impending doom, right? It's overpowering and good. The drama, the ritualistic drama. There seems to be some sort of ritual going here. You have to look at this closely, okay? I mean, there is, these pictures are, or at least what I do, require, and I know this is difficult for people, okay? It's difficult for me. You require the discipline of meditation. One has to look at them for a while and has to reflect on them a little while. And I hope that there's something to reflect on in these pictures that might have something to do not with just myself, but ourselves. Okay? I mean, that's the objective. That's what I'm trying to do. Whether I do that or not, is I have no illusions that I am somehow, bringing the world into enlightenment. There are only pictures, that you can look at. As a matter of fact, you can even, if you wish, you can look at these pictures and be annoyed. The other thing about myth is that it usually suggests some aspect of sacrifice. Subjects of myth are always subjects of extremity. You want to look at some subjects of extremity today? Look at this exhibition that's going on around here, right here, right? Huh? It has those elements in it. I think it does. It tends towards the grotesque, and it tends toward pretentiousness. We're all going to die. Does that make you nervous? I'm uncomfortable with it. Because death seems how to be not very nice. I don't think I was designed for death. You think about that, defining of the self. I don't think I was designed for death. I'm going to die, but I wasn't designed for it. I don't like it. This is called a place and a time. It sometimes snows in Texas. But there's always warmth somewhere. This is called daytime moon. The moon is a female symbol. So what is the moon in daytime? Notice the similarity between the nude in the background. The horse is it's a symbol of power. It's a symbol of kingship, right? The power of the horse, okay? According to Freud, it's also the horse run wild. This is a fairly benevolent horse. It's a sign of death. There's the big teapot, the tea of tranquility, with roses and flowers growing out of it, to not show too much sexual passion here. We'll hide the nude over in the background. Mother Moon. There's actually a little bird nest behind her too, and she seems to be sitting on kind of a scaly couch. The three figures that you see in the foreground is done from a photograph. The person on the left is my brother. The one in the center is my sister. And the other one is myself. Photograph taken in 1944. And you see that P-40 Tomahawk passing over there in the background? The Flying Tigers. I know everyone in here knows about the Flying Tigers, don't you? They fought for the Chinese, the Republic of China during World War II. They were volunteers from the United States. They were big heroes. So there's the Flying Tigers flying across that. Okay. Daytime moon. The myth. This is a little sketch that I did that I never have really done anything with it. But I thought I'd show it. Maybe gone possibly a little bit past that. Trying to creep in there something a little less organic, trying to creep in some automobiles. And I did a number of things trying to put some older automobile. My brother-in-law collects cars, restores them. My wife's brother. They're kind of interesting, you know. But it's a completely different world, all right? You know, I grew up in a time in which the greatest thing in the world was an automobile. And I like to have never learned how to drive, which was just really hard on my dating life, you know? And so you see, if you see some things, you know, I think this piece might be about that frustration. It's called Shelter. This is called Radio Woman. And it has, and you'll have to forgive me because I've got Latin in this, but I speak Latin with an East Texas accent, so it's sometimes kind of peculiar. Dispona, which means dispona, marching down, all right? And this is about the kindness and the genius of women. It's about their meanness. It's about that they march down upon us males and lift us up out of our boyhood into maturity. And we both love and despise them for it. It's kind of an Art Nouveau piece. And you think about what I just then said, and then Radio Woman. Okay? Do you ever take any, I mean, it really sounds like death, impending doom, the myth. Okay? Life is not funny, but art is usually pretty funny. Okay? Because, you know, we're looking at, you guys are sitting here, the world is collapsing out there. And you guys are all sitting here looking at pictures of Radio Woman. What is wrong with you? Whoop, what happened there? Got something out of sequence. Well, this is Grunhilde. The name of this is Grunhilde. And it's similar to what it is that I just dealt with in terms of Radio Woman. It's about this genius of women who place us just into the maelstrom of total confusion and being forced to become men, which very few of us really ever managed to achieve. But it's the genius of women that can do it for us. And this is about devouring, and it is also about the wonderful notion of devouring. Sexual passion. The glass of water. The pause that refreshes. This is a nativity piece. Bread upon the waters. And there it is. All art is a self-portrait. And there I am again with my Van Dyke this time. You have to look at it for a while. all of the elements. I think this is another one of those little mythological things, okay? Or attempt to be, anyway. This is called Sniper School. That is a kind of spiked Sacred Heart of Jesus, which I'm going to throw at the big target over there. It's in the world of color. Sniper School. And if you look carefully, you will find my bonnet again. It's on my knee. It's not my knee. Not really my knee. It's on the image. Okay. And you notice who's carrying the AK-47 this time. The lady has got the AK-47. Had a brother-in-law was drafted into the Army during the Vietnam War, and he was over there, you know, and he did something that I can remember quite well. I served with the 31st Infantry as senior aidman, and then later on with the 13th Field Artillery. And sometimes you're in this situation, in a military situation, and you, what you do is you figure out, like, if I volunteer for this, I can get out of this, okay? This is pretty alien to most of it here. But my brother-in-law was over there. He was drafted. He's in the infantry in Vietnam. Okay, and you know, up on the front line, and they said, "We want volunteers for sniper school." So he volunteered for sniper school, stayed in sniper school long enough to come back over to the States. Right? Get it? I've done it many a time. Okay, you know, I volunteered one time to. Learn how to explode C5, which is, you know, plastic explosive. In the medical corps. Went to school. Huh? Plenty to eat, all that kind of stuff. So sniper school, though in this case sniper school, it was still back in this thing about those gates, sexual passion, love, all right? The real world, the real warfare, the fear of extinction, right? Death and the fear of extinction. Note the look on the lady's face. There's a little Adam and Eve picture, back in the picture within the picture, back behind the head of the woman there. You see that? It's a lot clearer over here on this thing. Sniper school. Just finished this piece. It's called Village Customs. That's an Italian greyhound. Jim, that's an Italian greyhound. The leaping dog. Dog, symbol of faithfulness. The dog's eye. It's not more fun looking at these things than talking about them. Do you know it? Okay, this is the last picture so you guys can give a sigh of relief. The world has not ended yet, but this is going to end. This is called, just finished this piece. This is called Kidnapped Birds. The songbirds of our imagination, captured, bound up, like notes of music. one of the retreats, the Dominican retreat master pointed out, he said, to live is to annoy. We're kidnapped birds. Each and every one of us are kidnapped birds. The force that through the green fuse drives the flowers, drives my green age that bursts the roots of trees is my destroyer. And I am dumb to tell the crook rose that my youth is bent by the same wintry fever. End of lecture.